Wait, so the U.S. government came in and bulldozed the thing that used to be called the Hebrew mound?
You recognize this one?
Yeah, there she is, baby. The Back Creek Stone.
There was an agenda to literally dismiss the Book of Mormon by trying to make the Native Americans in North America out to be a bunch of savages instead of what the Book of Mormon describes.
In the words of Hugh Nibley, I mean, when you are endowed in the black robes of a false priesthood, you have to continually back each other up.
And now all of a sudden all the academics have egg in their face, but they never have to pay the price. And think how many careers were ruined. Think how many dissertations weren't allowed to be written. Think how much evidence was suppressed in those 400 years because of the scoffery of academics.
The three of those guys started the Bureau of Ethnology, which ultimately became the Smithsonian. And two of the three guys had fathers who just happened to be Methodist ministers in Palmyra, New York in 1830.
There's this circular reasoning that happens where somebody finds evidence that, oh, this might challenge a narrative. Well, it has to be a fake. Well, why? Well, because the academic consensus is that that narrative cannot be challenged.
We have now 8 different places in North America, pardon, that have ancient Hebrew writing in them.
This is all just Back Creek Stone crazy. All of the scriptural references used in this episode will be brought to you by scripturenotes.com. For a free trial to Scripture Notes, please visit the link in the description. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to Word Radio. I'm your host, Cardinellis. Today I'm joined in the studio by Bril Hernandez, as well as via Zoom by Rod Meldrum, the emperor of the Heartlander movement. Actually, we can't call it a movement, or else then you have to have like a presidential title. So if it's an empire, we just have to call you of the Heartland Empire. So,
Heartlander in chief.
Yes, the Heartlander in chief. So your conference was amazing. I thought it was a ton of fun. I invited you and Brill to come into the studio to talk, and I see Brill brought some visual aids with him. What you came in with 2 artifacts in your hands, bro. What do you got for us?
I brought the Newark Holy Stones. So we've got the Decalogue stone here and the keystone.
Okay, so what's the deal? What's the deal with these artifacts, bro? Because is this one of the Michigan relics?
No, this is the Newark Holy Stone. This is a Decalogue stone that was found close to some of the earth mounds, some of the earthworks that are in Ohio.
Okay, is this one of these things where like I'm gonna regret having had it on my show?
No,
and
you're not.
All my friends are gonna kick me out of the serious person
club?
I
mean,
or is there some legitimacy to this? Like, what's the story?
There is some legitimacy to this because one of the things that you have to realize is, so if you make one a fake, then the next one's a fake. Then the one after that is a fake. And what I'm talking about is any Hebrew artifact that is found in the Heartland, then you can basically consider all of them fakes, because if one is a fake, then the rest of them are, and then you have to scratch each other's backs in order to perpetuate this continued ideology.
Okay, so see, that's what I want to talk about today. Okay, is we all know there's the Michigan relics. One of them I think got made into a water fountain. I think Wayne May bought a bunch of the other ones. There's all kinds of artifacts, everything from the Kinderhook plates, which we know were fraudulent, all the way to really interesting relics that have proven to be real, and everything in between, okay? And I sometimes don't know what to think when you come in with really cool relics like the ones that you have, if you could hold them up again. Just because I know 2 things simultaneously. I know that they can't all be fakes. Sorry, they can't all be real. Some of them have to be fakes because, people are greedy and people are charlatans. But I also know that academia has been caught gatekeeping and not defending truth, but defending narratives. And not all of them can be fake either. So what are these relics and how do you think they're real?
So, I mean, one of the things that I think as far as these relics go is when you look at all the earthworks in Ohio, as all the work that Rod has done and that Wayne May has done, there's so much evidence that shows that there's some sort of Hebrew Israelite tie to those lands. You can't deny it. If you actually go and look at it,
okay,
there's Hebrew ties to them. There's so many earthworks that show that. So if there's that, then there has to be other things.
Well, let's get specific though. When you say, oh, there's so many Hebrew ties. So like in the Bat Creek stone, I know they said it's Paleo Hebrew, and your boy Scott Walter, famously on the History Channel, when he analyzed it, said, look, whether it's the residue on the rock, I believe this is an authentic artifact, so on and so forth. And a lot of people lampooned it as a forgery, but we do know it was found in 1889. And some people swear by it. Some people dismiss it. But nobody really seems to have a smoking gun about why their theory is correct. So what is the replica that you're holding on to? What is the replica that you brought, and why do you think it's real?
I mean, that's a great question. And Rod has a lot of information on this.
Okay, Rod.
So I jump in on that for a second?
Jump in
on that.
Well, yeah, Carden, you bring up a really good point, and that is that when it comes down to things being declared forgeries and fakes, there's a lot that has to be said. Just because somebody makes a claim of forgery or fake doesn't mean that it is. You have to have something to back it up, and there's lots of different ways that these artifacts have been looked at. Are some of them forgeries? Possibly. Are all of them forgeries? I guess it's possible, but it's not really likely when you consider the circumstances that they were found in and what happened with them after they were found. You brought up a good point, Carden, about the primary reason why somebody would fake something, okay, is for I think you said fame and fortune, right? Basically, well, the people that dug these things out got neither. In fact, they became infamous, and nobody made any money on these things.
Really,
the Bat Creek stone, the Decalogue stones that we're talking about here. I mean, who made any money on that stuff? The Michigan relics, for example, and so forth. I mean, Soper and Savage were the two guys that were supposed to have been the ones faking those things, but Wayne May is actually found, interestingly enough. I mean, first off, there's some things that just don't make sense. For example, the form of Hebrew that's on the Decalogue stone that Brill has right there, and I have another version of it right here.
Okay,
it's actually in the sarcophagus case that it came in. And so there's that. So we both have it sitting there. Okay.
If you cover your face, it won't automatically home in on your face. So cover your face. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Rock on. Perfect. Good job, dude.
Okay. Mine will probably do that either way because my camera's not sophisticated.
Yeah.
But anyway, so this stone, interestingly enough, when it was first found, they thought it was some kind of a Hebrew script. They took it to some rabbis, and the rabbis said they could read it. And so that's when they did the first translation of the characters on the stone.
So the one you're holding is called the Decalogue stone, but it's not the New Mexico Decalogue stone. No. It's the New Jersey Decalogue.
These are the Newark Holy Stones.
Yeah. Okay, the Newark Holy Stones. Okay.
Yeah.
And they were found in Newark then. I'm going to look this up, right?
Yeah, Newark, Ohio. Yep.
Okay, awesome.
So now let me ask you a quick question. If I was to ask you, Carden, could you write for me the 10 Commandments in Klingon? Okay. Could you do that?
No, I'd have no idea.
Right. In other words, basically, in order to make a good fake, a good forgery, you have to have something to forge from.
Okay.
And the characters that are on this stone weren't known to even exist at that point in time. They weren't discovered later until they found out monumental Hebrew in the Valley of the Kings in Egypt. Okay. They found this monumental Hebrew, basically is what they call their block style Hebrew. The rabbis at the time hadn't seen it before. They didn't know what it was, but they were able to decipher it. Basically, they said, well, this character looks like this, looks like that, probably means this, and so forth. But it's pretty hard to fake a stone when you don't have something to fake from. So how would you fake a stone with the 10 Commandments on it in Klingon? Now, it's kind of funny. I brought that up to some people. They said, actually, somebody's gone online and actually has made a Klingon alphabet, so you can actually do that. Okay. No, I need to find maybe the Borg or something. I don't know, somebody else. But anyway, but there's a couple other things about these artifacts though that are interesting, and that is that Wayne May found newspaper articles that talk about some of these stones, that the date in the newspaper article actually predates the birthday of the guy who was supposedly forging them. It's pretty hard to forge stuff before you're born. And yet these are considered to be fakes and forgeries, even though they were in newspaper articles before Soper or Savage were even born. So how do you fake that? And then also you got one or two guys faking stones, let's say, let's just assume that they were. They had to take these literally hundreds of artifacts. They had to manufacture them. Second, they had to take them to about 10 different states and bury them in over 100 different, about 200 actually. I think there's even more than that. But anyway, I can't remember. Several hundred mounds on other people's properties. You bury them out there someplace and hope somebody finds them someday. They never got any money from the whole deal. It would have taken years to just travel to all the places that they went to bury these stones, but yet somehow these guys were able to do all that.
Well, also these stones were actually found in two separate times. They weren't found together. So the Decalogue stone was found like in June, I believe, and then no, that was the one. This was in November of 1860, and then the keystone was the one that was found in June of 1860, and they were found in two completely different locations within Ohio. But just to kind of give you a quick little reference here,
okay.
This is a map that Ryan Nelson and Jonathan Neville worked on together to verify. Let me cover my face again. There we go.
Yeah, there we go.
And these are all of the mounds that are located around that area where these stones were found. These are all mounds that in one way or another have some sort of Hebrew connection. Is that coincidence, or is that just...
Okay, now when you say that they have some kind of Hebrew connection, what connection? Obviously, with your Newark Decalogue stone, there's script and writing. Okay. Well, if there were so many overwhelming artifacts that were so obviously Hebrew, we would have a stronger narrative of, Hebrew people coming to North America pre-Columbus. So what other connections besides writing do you notice there? Burial methods, jewelry, what?
So here,
how about the artifacts? How about the mounds themselves, as an example? Okay, for example, there was a set of mounds, and actually, let's see if I can find it for you really quickly here. But this is basically right here. This is from one of the earliest publications by the Smithsonian Institution here, and basically what they're showing is they did surveys back in the 1800s, the 1850s, basically, that were. They were surveying these mounds that were found in Ohio and all over the Midwestern part of the United States, and this is one of them. This is an actual image from the book that they published here. But you take a look at that one on the right hand side there. Okay, that's an earthwork right here, and this shows the size and the shape and so forth of the earthwork as it was surveyed here. And you see a couple of interesting things, like for example, right in the middle of it, what does that look like?
It looks almost like a genie lamp. Oh, you mean like the menorah looking thing?
Yeah, the menorah.
Oh,
okay, so here
wow,
is like a menorah that's in a mound that is in the Hopewell mound builder time frames. Okay, and this was measured out. I mean, this thing by the way is not small. Inside of this thing, it's like 150 acres inside of this. This is a massive mound complex.
And to give you reference, just as to why he's mentioning this, this mound is the neighboring county where these stones were found. Is just like right over here in this location. So this is where the stones were found. This is where that mound is located, right there.
Okay, see? Interesting.
Okay, now there's a couple of other things that are quite uniquely Hebrew. For example, you mentioned the lamp, right?
Okay.
It looks very much like a Hebrew oil lamp, which is fairly common. I had, in fact, I'm going to show you a couple of them, but I want to point out a couple other things here. Notice on the left-hand side of this, there's a thing that we should recognize pretty quickly. It's called the compass.
Where?
Right there, right up on the
left-hand side. If you can see my.
Yeah. Okay. I see. I see what you're talking about. Okay.
So there's a compass there, but there's also down in the lower right-hand corner. You see that one right there? What is that?
Oh, a square. I
A
see.
square.
Okay.
Okay. This was called the Hebrew Earthworks for a long time. It became so controversial that
Really?
later
Yeah.
on in the 1940s, I can't remember now who it was that actually took it down, but they bulldozed this entire site out of existence.
Oh my gosh, they bulldozed
It was completely gone. I mean, there's at least three
Many.
different surveys that were done on this mound. We know it existed at one point in time.
Well, we got to see your beautiful face, Rod. You got to stop sharing your screen now that we've seen it. You know what I'm saying?
Well, hold on.
Okay.
We're not quite done with that. This is an oil lamp here.
Okay.
And this is actually where it sits in Ohio, next to Veracruz. Oh, Veracruz was there's a cemetery right there. It's Veracruz Cemetery there in Ohio.
Okay.
But if you take a look at right here on the left-hand side of this, you see that the topographical lines here, right? That's just showing elevation, right?
Yeah.
You see that there's kind of two points there. There's actually 3 points that come right, 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Where my
Okay.
cursor is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of interesting because if this is where it is actually on a Google map today.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So this is the cemetery right here. Okay. Go back to this so you can see it. So this is the cemetery is right here.
Yeah.
There's the highways running through it right here.
Okay.
See this right here?
Yeah. Yeah.
You notice what anybody who knows Hebrew,
Yep.
that's something really interesting.
That's the
What was
Monster
that
Energy.
called?
That's the Monster Energy drink logo, right? I'm pretty sure.
It's also I think it's the 21st letter of the Hebrew alphabet, or maybe the 23rd. Anyway, it's called the Sheen. It's a Sheen. So if you take it right here and put it over the top, you can see the Sheen is actually where those 3 topographical lines are. That shows the elevation. That also shows you how the menorah was situated, and the oil lamp, the compass, and the square all sit onto the landscape today. And just to give you an idea of the size of it, those are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 big silos.
Okay.
That's over here on the right-hand side.
Yeah. Wait, so everything we see in black here, which basically is the menorah upside down and the compass pointing downward and then the genie lamp upside down, basically, you're saying that all of that was bulldozed in the 1940s?
Yeah.
Yep, it was gone. It's gone.
Who bulldozed it? Just the private landowner because they wanted to make some space for farmland?
It was a government agency. I'm trying to remember if it was the Bureau of Land Management or
I think it might have been the Army Corps of Engineers. I can't remember.
It was the
Wait, so the U.S. government came in and bulldozed the thing that used to be called the Hebrew Mound,
Earthworks.
the Hebrew Earthworks. Dude, this sounds like a straight up like Stargate 3 premise for a movie.
Oh, but there was no Hebrews here.
Yeah,
These are not the droids you're looking for.
Okay, so is that the new Heartlander mantra? These are not the droids you're looking for, and you're digging in the wrong spot.
No, that's not.
So
the
get
new
your
mantra.
face back on the Zoom, bro. People want to see your beautiful
There
noggin.
it is. Okay. This is actually the site right there, so you can see it. And City of Lehigh. Oh, I'd love to talk to you about that, but we're going to stop the share. Okay.
Okay. Wait. Okay. Well, now you can't do that. Just tease it and then be like, "Oh, well, here I am." You know what I'm saying?
You just did.
So, okay. So hold on. I want to. Okay, we're coming back here. We're coming back here. This should have been a live stream. But hold back up this relic, Brill. So
Both of them. Here.
Both of them. Okay. So if I understand you correctly, you're saying that the relic, the black relic that you were holding up,
The Decalogue.
that's the Newark Decalogue stone.
Yes. And it has the 10 Commandments written on it. And this is a figure of Moses.
Okay. And that was found what year?
This was found in 1860 in November 1st, 1860 in Ohio.
So in Ohio, was it confirmed to be found in mounds that people saw, or did just some guy come to town saying, "Look what I found"?
That's a part of the controversy that people are trying to make it into something, because these were found on a site that was, somewhat over the surface, but it was underground. But it was closer to the surface than it was inside of a mound.
So listen, there's a guy who was the town surveyor actually of Newark, Ohio. His name was David Wyrick. And David Wyrick was one of the guys that was with the group that they were actually digging into these mounds when they found the stone. And interestingly enough, so when they first found it, it looked like sort of like this.
Yeah.
This looked like a basic stone here. But when they kind of toss it to the side, it went clunk. It went kind of like make it made a clunking sound. And what the heck is that? So they washed it off and washed all the dirt off of it. Then they took the thing. They saw that it had kind of a rim around the edges of it, like this. See the rim?
Yeah.
And then when they popped it open, it was cemented shut. When they popped it open, here's this stone inside of this stone sarcophagus, if you will, basically. And then they looked at it and they go, "What? Oh my heck!" And then when they first found out, let me show you really quickly. The three characters that are over the top of the image of the stone are three characters in Hebrew that say the word Moshe, which means Moses.
Okay, interesting.
And then just take a look at the guy here. He's holding something in his looks like his left arm. He has a very interesting hat on his head.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anybody who's been to the temple might recognize something going on there.
Or anybody that's seen a
And then
CHP
also, the
officer
guy's wearing
drive
a
down
full-length robe. Dude, how many Native Americans wear full-length robes?
Okay.
Okay, so this is pretty fascinating stuff. And then you see all around on all the sides and on the back is all this Hebrew writing. Then that's when they took it to the rabbis, and then they said that they could decipher that old script that wasn't around at the time.
Okay, so there were witnesses to it getting dug out of the earth.
Yeah, and so David Wyrick, so this is what happened to him. This is the fame and fortune that David Wyrick got for digging up this, right? Because this is the reason why people forge stuff, is because for fame and fortune. Well, he basically was accused of having faked this stone. He took it to a bunch of different experts, and basically he was afraid that somebody's going to actually steal the stone from him. So he tried to make an oak version of it. He took a block of oak and he started trying to carve it. And he kind of carved it, and he had the actual stone there to look at and so forth. But the stone that the oak that he carved, he couldn't even get. There was like 35 different mistakes in the Hebrew that he made in trying to make this other one that he could send off to people to have them look at it and say, okay, does this language make sense or not? The guy basically was persecuted. He never denied his story. He never made a buck on anything here. He sent it to all kinds of experts, and he got nothing but derision and called to be, that you faked this, you forged it. But the guy was a highly respected member of the community before this all happened. And then he finally, because of all the persecution that he received from this wonderful artifact that he supposedly faked, he ended up in an insane asylum and died there.
That's a huge fortune.
Completely poor.
That's
He did not make a dime, and he lost his reputation over it. So you tell me, why would he do this?
So you're invoking the infamous criterion of embarrassment, which is a criteria of archaeological and historical inquiry to say, hey, this guy didn't make a bunch of money off of this. In fact, it ruined his life by sticking to his story. Okay.
Yeah.
So
he never recounted.
Okay. So regardless of whether he recounted or not and whether he was insane or not, I'm trying to use forensics to override provenance here, which people do all the time. Sometimes witnesses to a crime remember things wrong. And the forensic videotape or the forensic blood test shows, okay, that person actually was not there. You did not see the bad guy in the hoodie. It was actually, you didn't see the fat guy in a hoodie. It was actually the skinny girl in high heels that took out the candlestick in the library and killed, the maid or whatever. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So, there were witnesses that said, we saw this thing uncovered in real time. Correct or not correct?
Yes. They were there with him when they dug it out of the ground.
Okay, excellent. So then he cracks this thing in its little sarcophagus open, finds it, and at first doesn't recognize what it is, but some local rabbis recognize it as Hebrew script, at which point he just keeps it? Does he try and give it to the Smithsonian? Does somebody else actually verify it? And then another institution comes by and says, hey, your verification was incorrect. What happens?
You want to do that, Brill, or you want me to handle that?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Rod.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, so there's quite a bit of information online about this.
Okay.
There are people on both sides. I would have to say that the head historian, or I should say the head archaeologist for the state of Ohio, Bradley Lepper, is very much in favor of the idea that it was a fake or a forgery. Other people who are not even LDS have argued for its authenticity. There's actually books that have been published about whether it's a fake or a forgery. The museum basically is it's in Ohio there, but it's called the Johnson Humrick House Museum.
Okay.
In fact, I can show you a couple of pictures of it on display. It's still there on display. We were just there a couple of weeks ago, and they're still there on display. But the state archaeologist of Ohio has made them put in a thing that basically talks about why they're supposedly fakes. Okay. But what I think what we really ought to consider is, what about doing an actual forensic scientific study?
Yeah, like what has there actually been somebody who could say a forensic reason why they are fake or not fake? Did they find latex paint in the grooves of the saw blade that was used to cut that was, couldn't have been formulated since the 90s? What did they find?
And actually, that's Scott Walter from the History Channel documentary.
Yeah,
series.
baby.
Yeah, baby. Yeah, Scott. He did an actual show on the Newark Decalogue stones, and he actually brought it's a small pocket microscope basically, and he has an awesome conversation. I'd love to play the video of this because he's talking to Hugh. I don't remember his last name, but anyway, but he's not an LDS guy. He's a scientist as well, but Scott Walter, you have to understand that he is a forensic geologist. He's done work for the government. He has his business, American Petrographic Services, out of Minnesota, St. Paul, Minnesota, I think it is. And I mean, he's well respected in his industry and in his craft. Okay, and he's used like 3D microscopy and other tools to basically take a look at these stones. Now, what he came to the conclusion, he says, based on what he saw, he says there were wear patterns on the stone. He says there was the way that it fits into the sarcophagus here. He said, it took a massive amount of work for somebody to do that at a stone. Is really hard even today, but anciently it would have been just an incredible amount of work. Now, why the 10 Commandments? The reason why they were thinking that this is a fake, because this came out of a mound that dates right around pretty close to the time of Christ or just after. Okay, so right around 100 AD, and this is the reason why these have to be fakes. You see, because the Bible wasn't even compiled yet until 300 AD. So how in the world did the 10 Commandments, which would have been part of the original 5 books of Moses, how did that get over here in America 200 to 300 years before the Bible was even compiled in Europe? Clearly, that has to be a fake. It has to be a forgery because there's no way. But guess what? If you believe in the Book of Mormon, did the Nephites have
the brass
these
plates
things called the brass plates?
And well,
did
there
that
was
have
the
the 5 books of
Josephite.
Moses in it?
Well, also the Apocrypha shows that there were Josephite records that rivaled the
So this is the kind of
ones.
reasoning though that you get. They say it has to be a fake because it's over here in America before the Bible. The Book of Mormon has an answer for it. So which are you gonna believe? The expert that doesn't understand or even know that the Book of Mormon exists and that the brass plates were over here with the Native American people at that time, or just go with it? Oh, it's a fake. It's a forgery.
Okay.
And they don't even if you go onto Google and you start to type in to go search the Holy Stones, and This museum, just for the record, it's a private museum. So the only reason that they're even there is because it's a private museum. That's one. And then second is the Archaeological Department of Ohio. They're constantly pressuring them to you got to remove these things, dude. It doesn't really line up with the things that we've got in.
It doesn't establish the approved narrative. The Jeffrey Epstein, nothing to see on that island.
Exactly.
Nothing ever happened. No, Bill Clinton was not there.
And then
major heads of state and the Prince of England, not there. This is all just Bat Creek Stone crazy. Oh wait.
And then you look again at this map, and this is just the state of Ohio. There's so many more. There's so many more across the entire Midwest. So you're telling me that you happen to find these Hebrew artifacts. You happen to find some mounds that tie up to Hebrew traditions in the way that they worship, because some of these are temple mounds. Some of these are shaped like a menorah and a square and a compass. But when you go look online to see what they have to say about it, obviously they only lean to it being a fake, and they constantly basically bash and withhold the full story, which is what Rod just presented, the full story of what happened.
Well, they definitely rely a lot on scoffery, and my frustration is also what Jonah Barnes put in his book. Actually, I'm really lucky.
This is awesome.
What did he call it? The academic two-step?
By the way, shout out to Jonah. He did such a great job at the expo here last weekend.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
He did amazing.
I love what he said about this.
Absolutely love Jonah.
Yeah. So, gosh, if I would have known we were going to be talking about this, I would have figured out what page.
Can I take a shot at it?
Yeah, sure.
Because in his talk, he talked about how the circular reasoning that goes on with some of these things like scientific endeavor, and also he didn't specifically tie it to the artifacts that we're talking about here, but basically it takes some expert makes a comment that basically makes a claim that something is a fake or a forgery because they found it, and then somebody else brings in another artifact and said, well, part of the reason why we know this is a fake is because it can't exist in a vacuum. If there's a written language, it had to be more than just one artifact. So since we've only found one artifact, then it must be a fake. Then somebody brings out another artifact. They say, well, that other one was already proved to be a fake, so this one has to be a fake as well because, again, it can't exist in a vacuum. And then a third one, and then a fourth one, a fifth one. We have now 8 different places in North America, Cardin, that have ancient Hebrew writing in them, either writing or like the big huge earthwork with the menorah. I mean, there's not just one, there's 5 symbols that are clearly Hebrew symbols, sacred symbols to the Hebrew people. And there's 5 of them encoded in this massive, earthwork that is encompasses over 150 acres.
Yeah, and I get frustrated that there's this massive logical fallacy of an appeal to academic consensus. Yeah. They always say, well, the academic consensus is that there was no transoceanic voyages. Right. Okay, until we literally find a Viking village in Newfoundland where there was not just a transoceanic voyage, but there was an entire functioning society at one end of the train tracks, right? So, and they always said, for example, I believe it was the Testament of Nephtali, if I'm not mistaken, was lampooned. Yeah, it was in the Dead Sea Scrolls. It was lampooned. Yeah. No, there was other copies found. And the guy that found it, I believe in the 1600s or the 1700s, said, no, this talks about Christ before Christ. This is an original before Christ manuscript. This is a real authentic book. And it was lampooned, if I remember correctly, for talking about Christ before Christ was born. And academics believe that Christ was basically an invention of the first century Jews, to be basically an offshoot of Judaism that became Christianity, for lack of a better term. But anyway, they lampooned it for 400 years as a forgery until it shows up in the Dead Sea Scrolls next to all the other books written in the first century BC. And now all of a sudden all the academics have egg in their face, but they never have to pay the price. And think how many careers were ruined. Think how many dissertations weren't allowed to be written. Think how much evidence was suppressed in those 400 years because of the scoffery of academics. So I get really, really frustrated at the fact that there's this circular reasoning that happens where somebody finds evidence that, oh, this might challenge a narrative. Well, it has to be a fake. Well, why? Well, because the academic consensus is that narrative cannot be challenged. Yeah, but there's evidence that this is real and it challenges the narrative. Oh, do you mean the fake artifact that you showed us yesterday? Well, no, we never proved it was fake. No, but we know it's a fake. Well, how do you know it's a fake? Well, because it challenged our narrative, and our academic consensus is that narrative is unchallengeable. So go find us a real artifact. Okay, how do you define a real artifact? Well, one that doesn't challenge our narrative.
Well, so
it's like,
well, like in the words of Hugh Nibley, I mean, when you are endowed in the black robes of a false priesthood, you have to continually back each other up. Like you constantly have to follow that line of. So if you look at everything that's happened in the scholarly world, and you look at the world from that lens, then you have to believe everything that they're saying. Okay. So that's one perspective. Now, as Latter-day Saints, knowing that we have a living prophet and have had living prophets since the beginning.
Okay.
What have the prophets said about all of these things?
Is there an endorsement in the 1972 ensign of the Newark Decalogue stone, bro?
But that's what I always come back to. It's like, okay, I clearly I stake my flag as a Heartlander, obviously, because for one, I'm like best friends with Rod Meldrum at this point,
and you're the most Mesoamerican looking Heartlander I've ever seen in my life.
Right. So, but then second, when I first was introduced to this concept of Mesoamerican Heartland, I had no idea. I had a testimony in the Book of Mormon. I had a testimony in Joseph Smith. And I'm like, okay, this is awesome. And all of this is just extracurricular activities for me, Uh-huh. And so I'm like going and exploring all of these different pathways. And it's like, okay, if it happened down there, then what evidence do I have of living prophets during those times? What did they say about these things?
Okay. And then so before we wrap up here, we haven't even addressed the Keystone Relic. Put up the Keystone Relic. So we got the Decalogue stone, and then there's the Keystone Relic right there. Boom shakalaka. That was found with the Decalogue stone, basically.
It was found months before the Decalogue in a different location by the same person around the areas. Just to kind of give you another reference again.
Okay, yeah, we get it. It was found in the same area as the other mounds in Ohio. Okay, so what? Obviously, I pull up the Wikipedia page, and supposedly there was a dentist that claimed to have made the inscription and then buried it. But some people are saying his testimony could have been, obviously, self-serving. Yeah, exactly. Could have been self-serving. One thing in your favor, Rod, of this being an authentic artifact is the fact that it does mention that in his attempt to make a copy that doesn't seem to be nefarious, in his attempt to make a copy, that the it says right here that the how do you pronounce his name? Wyrick? Okay.
David Wyrick?
Yeah, is that David Wyrick was so incapable of making a good copy that they basically believed he could not have inscribed the original. You know what I'm saying? So
you can't even make a copy.
Yeah, it's agreed upon by even the professionals that most likely Wyrick was not the actual author of the stone, which is kind of interesting, and would lend credence using the criterion of embarrassment, and then also the fact that he couldn't professionally make a copy when he did have motivation to do so. The authorship was by somebody else. What are the top one or two reasons why you think it's real? I mean, obviously, we see how it conveniently fits into the narrative of, the Heartland geography model of the Book of Mormon. But outside of its convenient place, validating some of your most beloved stories in the Book of Mormon, is there any particularly forensic or archaeological reason why you think it has to be real because they could never disprove this, or we were able to prove that?
Yeah. Actually, not really so much with this stone, the keystone that we're talking about here. Although it is interesting that it has on it, it's basically shaped kind of like a plumb bob or what they call a keystone. They call it keystone because if you have an arch, this would be the top part of it, and then the arch would go down on this side and go down on this side as well over here, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why they call it the keystone. But it would hang. They think they would probably hang it by some kind of a string or something, maybe like a plumb bob, if you will.
Okay. Yeah.
But you can hold it in your hand and just rotate it like this. Just hold it like, let me see if I can get it here. Rotate it, rotate it, rotate it. And each time you rotate it, the characters that are on the stone actually would say these four phrases. The first phrase is the Holy of Holies. The second phrase is the law of God. The third phrase is the King of the earth. The fourth phrase is the word of the Lord. Okay, these are all temple kinds
I was gonna
of
say, is
phraseologies.
it like a
right?
rosary to Catholics where
Yeah.
you pray the rosary and then physically
And
you
also,
go along the beads?
this one right here, you notice this little slot in the bottom of it right here?
Yeah.
They believe if you've ever been to the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem, you will see when the young men basically are making covenants with God, basically, right? They have this thing that they hold in their hand and they wrap it around their arm. Each time they make a covenant, they put another wrap around it. It's called an arm phylactery.
Yeah.
This is something that you would attach the strap to here, hold it in your hand, and then wrap it from the strap and wrap it around your arm as you make sacred covenants with God. If you're a Hebrew, it's a Hebrew thing.
Now, are those rituals as ancient as the stones would have to be in this context? Because some of these Jewish rituals are actually new, like Hasidic Jews that live in New York. I think that tradition's less than 400 years old, if I'm not mistaken. It comes out of like the late Middle Ages or Napoleonic era.
Yeah.
Right. So
I don't know exactly when these would have been used, but basically, the fact that it has that space in there is something that Scott Walter actually picked up on. He says that, it looks like it's an arm phylactery that would be used. Now they have phylacteries they put on their head too. Have you ever seen those? It's like a little box.
Yeah.
You see them on Orthodox Jews' heads.
I live in Los Angeles, bro. I literally do kosher markets. Like it's, dude.
Yeah.
Of course.
So they have the payas. They have their sideburns are kind of pulled like they let them grow really long and they make them into like a braid kind of thing that goes in front of the ear.
Yeah.
I've got pictures of Native Americans, some of the oldest pictures of Native Americans, the same thing. And then they have like a big hair knot right here in the front of their head, right where they put that phylactery on their head. And they put scriptures in this little box. So literally the scriptures are on their mind. Okay. So literally on their mind. But can I share with you just one quick example of when somebody actually did an actual scientific analysis of the stone?
Yes, I'd love to hear that. Awesome. Hit it.
Not this particular stone, okay, but it would be very similar. So let me pull this up real quickly because we're going to bring this up. This is one of the 8 different examples of Hebrew in the Heartland. So this is called you recognize this one, I think, already.
There she is, baby. The Bat Creek Stone.
Bat Creek Stone with my sweet wife Tanya's hand as a scale.
Hey, she did a great. Look at those lovely acrylic nails.
Those beautiful hands.
I was about going to say she
No
did the full mani pedi. She just didn't do the she didn't do the cheap one. She got the gel tips and everything. So keep going, man. Keep going.
Okay, so this is the Bat Creek Stone when it was actually on display at the McClung Museum in Tennessee, and basically, so this is a very controversial stone too. But let me just tell you a little bit about the provenance of this stone, okay? Because basically, it was found in I'm going to show you a couple of other quick pictures. So this is how it was displayed, okay? And this is another picture so you can kind of get a good idea of what's going on. Now there's this double barred cross that was not there originally, and it was in the first pictures that were done of it, that cross figure right in the center above the main text wasn't there. So that was done, basically we know that was done in the late 1800s, okay?
Okay.
You can kind of see a little bit closer there. So what happened was Scott Walter from American Petrographic Services got permission to go to the McClung Museum and actually record and do the analysis. They wouldn't allow him to take the stone out of the museum, but he was able to bring in his new technology. It's a Keys
Yeah. Okay.
3D microscope, right?
Yeah.
And so he does an analysis of this. The background information, basically, that it was discovered by John Emmert. Okay, it was in a grave on the Little Tennessee River near the mouth of Bat Creek, which runs into the Tennessee River there. Okay.
Okay.
And this is part of the Smithsonian's Bureau of Ethnology's Mound Survey project. So this was what specifically they were looking for. So Cyrus Thomas was the one that was originally called to find out what that was. So John Emmert made basically a tracing. He took a piece of paper with a pencil and went over the top of it, kind of rubbing it back and forth.
Yeah.
And so he made this tracing of the stone, and he sent it to his boss. And his boss basically was like, okay, that's interesting. Well, Cyrus Thomas was the epigrapher that actually identified the inscription. This was actually published in the Smithsonian. Okay. And let's see, the inscription was noticed by Chicago patent attorney Henrietta Mertz to have been published upside down. Let me show you what that means. The 1971 inscription was found to be a Roman area Paleo-Hebrew Judean.
Yeah. I
Right.
see that. Yeah.
Okay. This was the drawing that Emmert made, John Emmert made of the stone right after it was extracted from the mound. So this is in a mound. They dug down. There was 9 or 10 burials facing one direction, and then there's one other guy was facing the other direction in the mound that was buried there. This was found underneath his body. So they exhumed his skeleton first, and this was down right underneath his chest area where this was found. This was the exact size of the stone and a fair representation of it. This is by John Emmert. Okay. So this is in mid-February of 1889. Okay. This was actually what was shown. This is now published in the Smithsonian here. Okay. Like this. So notice how he wrote it right here. And actually it does have that double-barred cross there on top of it.
Okay.
In the initial thing. So I guess that was actually there originally. Okay, then this is how it was published by the Smithsonian in their book a few years later. But 75 years after that, there was a lady, this Henrietta Mertz, was looking at the publication upside down. The book was open on a desk, and she was looking at it from the other side of the desk, apparently. And she noticed that if you turn the stone around this way, it's perfectly legible Hebrew. Every character is a Hebrew character. And she's, well, holy cow. In the Smithsonian's book, they called it Paleo Cherokee. It's some early script that was just made by the Cherokee. And she said, no, that's Hebrew. And she went out and found other epigraphers to actually verify the fact that it is actually Hebrew. So this was actually dug up by the Smithsonian in an official archaeological dig. Okay, so nobody can go and whining about, oh yeah, somebody faked this. And so, people said, well, maybe Emmert forged it and so forth. But Emmert never made any money off this deal either. He didn't get fame or fortune either.
Okay.
And then this is ancient characters on another Hebrew deal. I can't remember now exactly what that was, but you notice that the characters there's very similarities between them. Okay. Ancient characters. So what Scott Walter did is he basically took a look, and when stones are old, they get kind of a surface on them. And it's basically it's an iron oxide rich weathering rind, okay, is what they call it.
Yeah.
So he's checking this out. You can see where it's been chipped off. You can see it's a lighter color, but the main surface of the stone is darker.
Yeah. That
darker color is from this weathering rind.
Okay.
And so you can see where it's unweathered, iron cemented, clayey siltstone. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is on the back side of the stone, actually with John Emmert, and this is the cataloging information and so forth about the stone, because again, it was in an official archaeological dig.
Yeah.
And then basically, so what he did is he took this is actually electron microscope looking into the scratches.
Yeah. So what did he find? Well, like you said that we're going over the forensics of this, right? Well, so finally we're getting to the meat of that.
This is actual science. This is actually taking a
okay. So what did he find? Is it real or not? Yeah. So what did he find?
This isn't somebody's theory about something, right? Okay. So it says basically says a closer view of the scratch in character number 11 inside the yellow box shows iron-rich orange oxide clay that was produced when the instrument crushed the exterior weathering rind. The crack pattern in the clay-filled groove indicates the probe made the scratch in the direction from top to bottom. So by looking at electron microscopy here, they can actually see which direction the scratching instrument was used to which direction it moved.
And then they can know, were they writing intentionally in the upside down supposed Paleo Cherokee, or were they writing intentionally in the right side up?
Well, actually
Paleo-Hebrew?
not so much that. They're looking at the weathering pattern. If this happened, if this was inscribed on this stone, 1,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago, then you should have some weathering of the stone after it was inscribed, right?
Okay, yeah.
This is another shot. He said the yellow box indicates the area of cracked clay produced by the probe that made the scratch in the image below. The bright white areas are in either side of the scratch groove, and the presence of the iron oxide. That this is a 90x image. This is going into 1500x. This image is closer broken edge of the cracked silty clay within the scratch groove of character 12. The brittle nature of the deposits within the groove are consistent with comprised of a greater than 50% clay minerals, with the remaining silica material composed of quartz. Okay, so this is not somebody making an opinion about something.
Well, so what's it boil down to? Like, what does all this forensics boil down to?
I'm going to show you his conclusions in just a second. Okay. These are a little bit a wider thing. You can see where this image was taken. And basically, after his conclusions are basically this: based on the review of the historical correspondence and reflected light and scanning electron microscopic examination of the artifact on May 28th of 2010, the following conclusions were made. Number one, our geological findings are consistent with the Smithsonian Institute's field report that was written by John W. Emmert. Number two, the complete lack of the orange-colored silty clay residue in any of the characters of the inscription is consistent with many hundreds of years of weathering in a wet earth mound comprised of soil and hard red clay. So it's consistent with it being at least hundreds of years old, long before Emmert came along, right? And number three, the inscribed stone and all the other artifacts and remains found in the mound with it can be no younger than when the bodies of the deceased were buried inside the mound. So this is not a fake. It's not a forgery. It came out of a mound that has been dated into Book of Mormon time frames. These artifacts came out of that mound, and it only became controversial when it became Hebrew. As long as it was Paleo Cherokee, no problem. This is a real artifact. It's only when it was pointed out that this is Hebrew, which would tend to actually support the claims of the Book of Mormon, that this became an issue. Just like you were talking about before, Carden.
Okay, awesome. So now let's get your beautiful mug back up there, bro, so people can see your frustration.
There's no beautiful mug here, but anyway. So.
Yeah, okay. So you're satisfied that Scott Wolter's, by the way, do you pronounce it Walther or Walter? How do you?
Wolter, Wolter.
Wolter. Okay. So you're satisfied that Scott Wolter's analysis says the original Smithsonian's analysis was correct. Now, couldn't somebody, this might be cynical. Lie? Well, I'll tell you why you would lie. I was going to say a cynical person would say, well, yeah, if you're running a TV show that is wholly dependent upon finding lost relics that have been declared fakes as being real, you're kind of incentivized either financially or by popular demand to say that it is indeed authentic when it might be fake.
Yeah, but he's going against the consensus. He's basically...
Well, because that's the premise of his show, is going against the consensus.
Right? So he's going against the consensus. He's not making any extra money because he's doing this. He's not claiming to have faked it. He's just doing an analysis and saying an objective analysis shows that this stone, there were some scratches on the back side of the stone that he analyzed, and the surface of that was scratched in the 1800s is very harsh and very, you can see that happened quite recently because it hasn't had any time to weather. That's what he's basically talking about. The weathering inside the inscriptions was actually kind of smoothed out because of erosion.
Okay, so, but now we're talking Bat Creek stone. Yeah. And we started out by talking Newark Decalogue. right? And then we got into the Keystone. So basically, unfortunately, we
There's
got it.
three
Yeah, there's three right there. So you're
with Hebrew writing on them.
now you bring up a good point. Like nobody thought Donald Trump was racist until he registered and ran as a Republican. He was in all the rap songs. He
Right.
was dating all of the celebrities of, you know, every race, creed, and color. He was invited to every event of every type of organization. He was in beloved pop culture movies as well as in everything from hip hop to country songs, right?
Now he's the pariah.
Yeah, and nobody dared. I mean, nobody called him some wild Hitlerian, Luciferian, you know, reincarnation of Joseph Stalin until he registered as a Republican to run, and all of a sudden the floodgates break loose. So you're saying that just like that may be an unfair characterization of Donald Trump, that all of these artifacts were declared as authentic until somebody noticed that when you flip it upside down, it's no longer unlegible Paleo-Cherokee, it's actually Hebrew script.
Why would people have an agenda against the Book of Mormon? I mean, when we were doing the Lost Civilizations of North America documentary, you're gonna love this one, Carden. You know who started the Smithsonian?
Oh yeah, wasn't it like an anti-Mormon pastor from Palmyra?
Okay, there's three guys. There was Lewis Henry Morgan, John Wesley Powell, and Ephraim George Squires. The three of those guys started the Bureau of Ethnology, which ultimately became the Smithsonian. And two of the three guys had fathers who just happened to be Methodist ministers in Palmyra, New York in 1830. What's the chances that then the people who started the Smithsonian might have just happened to found out about this upstart young prophet by the name of Joseph Smith and his gold Bible and the claims of this Book of Mormon? Of course they knew it, and they set out to basically try to dismiss the Book of Mormon by saying that the ancient people here in North America were just nothing but a bunch of ignorant savages. They were just burying nut hunters and roamed around in nothing but a loincloth. Well, they didn't even say a loincloth. Anyway, so they had an agenda, and this is the thing that people have got to understand. Your audience has got, my audience, everybody. I mean, we need to understand that there was an agenda to literally dismiss the Book of Mormon by trying to make the Native Americans in North America out to be a bunch of savages instead of what the Book of Mormon describes, and that is documented fact.
Okay. So last question. So right now, the academic consensus is that the Newark Decalogue, which Brill showed us and you have a copy of, the Keystone, is it called the Newark Keystone as well, Brill?
Yeah, you can call it the Newark Keystone.
Okay.
It's just the Keystone.
Or the Keystone. So
in combination, they're the Newark Holy Stones.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So the Newark Holy Stones and the Bat Creek Stone, you say are lampooned as fakes unfairly when they shouldn't be. And one of the reasons why you think they shouldn't be is because you say sufficient forensic inquiry by Scott Walter has proven that the original analysis that this was Paleo-Hebrew is indeed correct. Are there any studies or measurements that could be done, any tests that could be performed on these stones that would convince you that would either convince you that they are indeed fakes, or you think would be proof positive that they are indeed authentic? What could be done? How could they be tested to prove themselves? Does that make sense?
Yeah, there's really no way to absolutely prove something. If somebody is determined to make a forgery or fake, and they're smart enough, I mean, take a look at Mark Hoffman.
Yeah,
I was just going to mention that.
And he made some pretty interesting forgeries and fakes, but ultimately he was discovered and found out, right? But so I guess you can't date them because dating, for example, there's two primary methods of dating. There's carbon type dating, okay, which is dating stuff that has been alive. This clearly hasn't been alive, so you can't carbon date it.
Yeah.
There's also rock dating, which is radiometric dating. And the problem is if you try to do that type of dating on this stone, what you're going to end up is with the idea of when the stone formed from lava, basically from magma.
Yeah.
And that's not going to give you any kind of indication of when the inscription was made. There's no way to date the inscription scientifically. So that's why Scott Wolter does what he calls age-related dating. So he looks at the inscription. It was said it was buried in a mound. It's had time to erode. And so it takes time for that erosion to happen. So he's basically saying, okay, the actual inscription was eroded. The new scratch that was put on the stone later on is very it's very sharp and kind of harsh, and basically said it's clearly that's a new scratch. And when you compare the two of them, you can kind of get an idea. Okay, so that's what so there's no really way to date that. When it comes down to provenance, even when you're doing an official archaeological dig, again, it wasn't a problem for 75 years. And then all of a sudden, it only became a problem when it was actually serving as an evidence in support of the claims of the Book of Mormon, which they're all very much aware of, especially back in that
and
day.
Also what would be the greatness of the American Indian empires. And they had just raped and pillaged an entire continent and 50 different tribes of all of their lands under the auspices of the superiority of the European and the inferiority of those ignorant savages. And if all of a sudden those ignorant savages were actually proven to be a great and large civilization, then, oh no, we're not, not eminent domain. Manifest destiny apparently isn't so manifestly destined.
Well, to your point, Cardinal, like you have so many civilizations. Like there's been time and time again that they've had to rewrite history, even in Mesoamerica, because they first said there was only like a couple of million, and then they find more locations with more buildings and structures, and like, oh well, maybe there was more people that live there, so now we have to rewrite that and say there was actually 10 million people that live there, and so on and so forth. But we haven't done that here in North America because they don't go out and actually survey these areas the way that they're, in my opinion, the way that they should, to find the history of archaeological sites here in North America that have been unfound and undiscovered.
Okay, so, but that's true and untrue. Like, an insane amount of archaeology is done in America every time a public works project is approved. Like, before you can build a freeway, before you can build a schoolhouse, there has to be an archaeologist that shows up, documents any findings, and makes it so that the next Bat Creek stone doesn't happen. You know what I'm saying? Because, they're going to have a guy on site that does this. That's how we found the woolly mammoth in San Diego when they were extending the 405 freeway. That's how we find everything from arrowheads to, hopefully the next cave of records, right?
Hey,
so,
Carter?
yeah.
I was gonna say, have you ever heard of the Isaiah Marlowe Bridge that crosses the Mississippi River just outside of St. Louis?
No,
they got a bunch of money from that to do archaeological work at a place called Cahokia, which is just on the east St. Louis, basically over on the other side of the river, and in Illinois. Yeah. And based on the original population estimates, they said, well, it's probably about 20,000, maybe 30,000 people lived in that general area back in the Book of Mormon time frames.
Okay.
But after they got a little bit of money and actually had the chance to actually do some archaeological work, they said that number is going to have to be 4 times more as a minimum, just based on what we were able to see. And what we were able to see was less than 1% of the overall land area that we're looking at here. So we're talking about at least 85,000 to 90,000 people just living in that one little area around Cahokia and St. Louis.
And that's a small percentage of the entire location.
Okay. Yeah. Right here in mound territory. All right. So So you guys are sold on these two relics. Put them back up again, just so everybody can see. You're sold that the Newark Decalogue and the Keystone, the New York Holy Stones, are indeed authentic relics.
I'll tell you what, the nice thing about this is, Carden, is that the Heartland model doesn't rise or fall on whether these are fake or not.
Okay.
These are great potential evidences. Okay. But everything doesn't hang in the balance based on these artifacts. If they're fakes, and they could be proven to be fakes, it doesn't change anything as far as we're concerned on the Heartland research, because our research does not depend on the scientific stuff. It depends on what Joseph Smith said, what the Book of Mormon says, and so forth. It's more of a spiritual background. But this is nice. It's good to have what you believe in.
I get it. It's the trust but verify thing. So you believe it passes muster. I would like to know more myself, because I do have to say, I don't know if it's just the older I get or if this is like a post-COVID thing, but I got to tell you, the older I get, the less I believe in the scoffery of academics and the less I believe in the academic consensus. And I say, well, just show me. Because the academic consensus was this was only 2 weeks to stop the spread, that 6 feet social distancing was going to work.
Will stop it.
Yeah,
the vax, you're not going to get sick.
And it was found in a wet market. It was a wet market.
Yeah, that it had nothing to do with
gain of function.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with the lab in Wuhan. So much so that now it's a Jon Stewart stand-up. And so
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like these people have really lost. Like, I don't think academia understands what DEI at Harvard and what COVID did to their reputation. And it exposed the rot that is in academia and the corruption of the scientific model of verification, which is a tragedy. So I am no longer satisfied with people that say, well, look, experts have reviewed this and declared it a fake. Yeah, what experts? The experts that shut my business down and said I can't go visit my grandma who's, dying on a respirator in the local hospital. Yeah, F those experts. I'm going to go find my own answers here. So I'm a sympathetic ear if you want to say that the experts have misrepresented these artifacts, and we need to reconsider some of these origin stories. So anyway, You guys think they're real. That's awesome.
So why don't we talk about, what do the prophets have to say about all these things?
Okay, make it fast before we go. What am I going to feel?
The experts.
No, why don't we just do that on the next one?
Well, no, just say it now. Like, what do the prophets say? Like, you're bad if you don't believe in the Newark Holy Stones.
No,
thus saith Parley P. Pratt, or what? What is it?
My take on all of this is simply, I'll take it back to the very beginning as to what I mentioned earlier. My entire foundation on all of this was I have a testimony in the Book of Mormon, and then I had continued faith and testimony in what the prophets had to say. Like, I had, before I joined the church, I had a huge issue with the prophet Joseph Smith. Like, that was like a big thing that I was like, I don't know if he could have actually done all this.
Okay.
The more that I've gone, like you, as I've gotten older and I've done more research in the actual history of what did the prophets say and what did his apostles say.
Yeah, but he didn't say they land on like the 23rd parallel south, which would have been like in Chile.
But
No. That was W.W. Phelps in the Bernheisel manuscript. He added that in there. And Joseph Smith's when John Bernheisel was
and he said it was a 30th degree, but they didn't say whether it was north or south. And if you actually pinpoint it to the north, it lines up right along Florida. I'm just saying.
I see what you did there. Okay, so now hopefully you're not holding people's testimonies hostage, saying like, well, the prophet Joseph said, well, because he did say a lot of things. Right?
Well, no, what I'm trying to say is simply, our faith is in the Book of Mormon, and our faith is in what the prophet said. And everyone that likes to have these discussions, it's like we all believe, and we all love the Book of Mormon, and we all have a testimony of the Book of Mormon. All of this stuff is just extra stuff.
Yeah.
It's our extracurricular activities. You know, you and I have our own day jobs, and this is just extra for us.
Okay.
And so my take on this is simply, I look at what the scholars say with a grain of salt, but I more so look at what the prophets had to say, and that's what I base a lot of my, continued truth that backs up my testimony and my faith.
Yeah. Wasn't President Nelson that said we should put exclamation points behind the prophet's words instead of question marks?
Ooh, that would be pretty good. Although there's some really cringy talks in the 70s, I wouldn't really do that too. You know what I'm saying? I'll be honest with you. There's some really cringy talks in the 70s. I might skip over that. Parley P. Pratt stuff, I'm down. Joseph Smith stuff, I'm down. There's a lot of very forgettable characters in 60s, 70s, and 80s that I'd be like, nah, let's hold the exclamation marks for Russell M. Nelson.
And it's like, if you come up, like, it's good to have questions. I have questions. The reason I'm even here is because I had questions that I wanted answers to. Mm-hmm. But we can't continually question to the point that we're dismantling.
We're deconstructing instead of questioning.
Yeah.
Okay.
There has to be a balance. You know, when you're honestly searching for the truth, then the Spirit will guide you and continue to testify to you.
Yeah.
But if you're not, then you're just going to continue to deconstruct, and it ends up in a bad place, in my opinion.
Well, all of the anti-Mormons are always talking about their deconstruction.
Yeah.
And then, it's so. Anyway, that was funny. You guys are a riot. I have to say, you are the funnest people in the bloggernacle. I love the Firm Foundation. You guys are the best. I feel like Joe Rogan, who's friends with Alex Jones, and whenever people want to rip on Alex Jones, he's like, hey, I love this guy. He's awesome. You know what I'm saying? I feel like you guys are the coolest party in all of Mormonism.
We had a good time, didn't we?
No, dude, it was rad. Jonah Barnes showed up in a Batman suit, made like a killer freaking talk.
He did great.
Yeah.
Oh man.
No, it's fun.
He had all the stripling boomers, rahing and hawing for him. Like,
yeah, he had the fake AI discussion with Trump. It was so hilarious. So anyway, you guys are the best. This is compelling stuff, and I give you a compliment. I want to go with the little personal time that I have to go study more into this. Because
come with me, brother.
It seems interesting and compelling. Yes,
come
awesome.
with me. We'll take you on a tour to the Heartland and let you see for yourself the head plates, the breastplates, the Hebrew writing. I mean, all this cool stuff, man.
Awesome.
It's awesome.
I'm loving it. Okay, let us know what you guys think in the comments below. Are you sold on the Back Creek Stone, on the Keystone, on what was the other one? The Decalogue Stone. Let us know what you guys think in the comments below without appealing to the authority of early church fathers or of the experts. Let us know just what evidence you have personally that makes you think that it's real. And as always, for this and more, please check us out at wardradio.com.